And so, okay, right now you see Instinct is in their hut, is in Status Quo's hut. And that's a really huge thing, because if you can be in your opponent's hut, then you can force them to spawn everywhere else on the map. And hut is really the most important spot, because that's where snipers spawn. It's that simple fact. If you can keep your opponent cut off from the power weapons at all times, that's your strongest advantage. And see, right here is where I believe Instinct gets this cap. So that's a huge thing, is cutting off the map, both using the spawn system and just with your decisions about where you're moving and where you're looking. When in doubt, you just want to cut off the map and prevent them from having access to more of the map. So say in a 1v1, you're on street and they're in sorry, I'm thinking on Zealot. So say you're in a 1v1 on Zealot and you're on landing or street and your opponent's in their health. The question is, do you stay patient and stay on their landing, or do you push into that health and try and flush them out? And the answer is you probably want to stay on landing, because that gives them no opportunity to escape. By staying on landing, you're cutting off the map, because you can see if they come through bridge, if they go to ring 1, if they go to holos, and so that gives you more knowledge about where they are, and that prevents them from having access to as much of the map. Now there he drops down to avoid some nades. He's kind of just trying to stay alive right here, unfortunately. Pistol, it gets him. Sneaky bastard. And while he's dead, the theater does not show what you did with your death camera when you were actually playing. So I'm betting that while he's dead, he's looking around at his death camera and using that to his advantage. Because if you notice, off spawn, he seems to always know what he wants to do. It actually really strikes me how quickly he moves into action off spawn. What I went over the film later, and the reason he was looking there is there were rockets that fell and they just totally disappeared. So that was a weird little glitch. Maybe probably something to do with live. So that guy's staying alive at Walshy. But what I noticed is that I don't think that's Ogre 2. That was Ogre 2 at Walshy there. And he doesn't wait long enough for his shield to recharge. And I think old pros are really used to the recharge rate of other halos, where your shields from not only, both kinds of recharge work faster in other halos, I believe. The time that it takes to get from when you get shot to when your shields start recharging was faster, and the time it takes for your shield to go from 0 to 100 was faster. And so a lot of times people, their shields will start to recharge and reach, and then they'll push out thinking that they're fully recharged. But actually, their shields are coming out so slowly, by the time they get into action, they're still down by a shot or two, and that screws them over. So if you're going to wait for your shields to fully recharge, you really might as well wait the whole time in a lot of situations, unless they're not going to be looking at you at all. But if they're going to be looking at you, you really want to be patient with that. And make sure you give yourself the full advantage of waiting that full 6 seconds. Because there's no point waiting that 6 seconds only to lose the bat, to basically have a guaranteed loss of a battle. Just because your shields haven't recharged all the way. That was a really aggressive jump right there. And he's just doing this. That's a good move. He prevents. Wow. That was a great play. He might have been a little too aggressive because there were 2 players in hut, but he cleans up 2 at one time. And the thing about killing your opponents all at the same time is it makes it so much easier to keep track of the spawns. So if you can get multiple of your opponents down at the same time, then you know they're likely going to spawn near the same place. Especially if you can wait a second or 2 after the spawn to make sure they all spawn before putting pressure. Because if you start putting pressure off the spawn, and only 2 of them spawn, then the other 2 might spawn split. Like 2 might spawn rocks, and then you put pressure on them before the other 2 spawn. Then the other 2 spawn hut, and you're left in a pretty bad position because you're fighting on multiple fronts. It's never good to fight on multiple fronts if you can avoid it. Another thing that strikes me watching this gameplay is watching how fast he takes his sniper shots. He does not take his time with these sniper shots. It's kind of an all or nothing deal. He goes for the shots, and then if he doesn't hit them, he ducks out as fast as he can. I mean, that time he was in a place where he really couldn't help but commit. And they end up going 3 down because of that. I don't think Ace's Status Quo's main sniper. I feel like Enable is more of their main snipe, so it's not surprising to see, a less than perfect performance from him. That's a great move there, jumping around enough that Roy has to use 2 rockets on him, which prevents Roy from using any rockets on his teammates that are spawning in rocks. So just by being aggressive with your movement and making sure that you're moving around, hopping around, making it confusing for your opponent, he made him use 2 rockets there, and really, that was a really strong play. He zooms in to make sure to get that kill there, which is a great thing to do, especially if in a 5-shot kill. If you want to make sure that your 5-shot kill is clean from a distance, you want to zoom in so that your reticle is red. Because if your reticle is not red and you're firing, it's a lot harder to hit that headshot, especially at like really long range. Now at this point it's 1-1, and Instinct is 3 dead. Ace is the only one spawning for Status Quo, and he comes in and pressures them at court. Now there, he might have been a little too aggressive, but if you're interested, you'll notice he didn't push too far. I mean, he pushed a little bit too far, but he didn't push ridiculously far. He's still giving himself a little bit of a chance to get away, and that's essentially playing on options. All you want to do all the time is just give yourself options. The places with the most options are typically the power positions of the map. Why are higher positions more powerful than lower positions? Because they actually give you more options for movement because of gravity. You can fall down more easily than you can jump up, and more quickly. Now that was some insane movement. That looked like they were just gliding over the surface of the map, and that was just mind-boggling. No, you saw Kyle, ElamiteWarrior, moving in onto their flag through their rock ramp, on the instant flag through the rock ramp. And he's probably going to be crushing him in that hut right now. Now the player to, nice, good, okay, never mind. I was thinking this play wouldn't work out that well, but it's actually working out quite well.
Flag taken.
Pistol is absolute, now dead. They're spawning rocks, but he's 1-shot, so he can't really push out. And see, that's what I'm talking about. That split spawn just happened, just like I said. 2 spawned in rocks, and then they pressure, 2 or 3 spawned in rocks, they pressured him immediately, and then the last guy spawned in a hut when a teammate was still expecting him to spawn in rocks, which really hurt him, because he pushed out on T-Bridge, thinking he was pretty much totally safe. And a large part of being a really good Halo player, in Reach especially with this long shield recharge, is knowing when to push out despite the fact that your shields are down. And it's essentially a matter of knowing where your opponent's focus is. If your opponent's focus is, that's a great game. I'm gonna finish what I'm saying here and then wrap this video up. But if your opponent's focus is on one of your teammates, that is when it is a great time to push out, especially if you have at least 2 shots left of health. Because that gives you the ability to team shot, and even though you're hurt, you're still not really at that much risk if their focus is already on your teammate. And that applies in a lot of different situations, both in long range team shot and in close range. So say you're a top gold on Zealot and you have 2 guys on blue landing, you might push out if both of you just push to kill 1 guy at top gold, you're gonna get him. If only one of you pushes while the other's trying to be like sneaky or like cautious or careful and peek shot, then that first guy is at way more risk, because the second guy can't put nearly as many shots because the guy at top gold can duck around a corner or something. Alright, and I'm going on a little bit now, so I'm going to wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed this commentary. Subscribe for more. Peace out.